Great. We all set, Elena?
We're all set.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good evening. I'm calling this public hearing to order at 6 p.m. In accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGLC 131, Section 40, and the Boston Wetlands Ordinance, Boston City Code Ordinances, Chapter 7-1.4, the Conservation Commission will hold a virtual public hearing this evening on February 21st, 2024, to review the following projects to determine what conditions, if any, the Commission will impose in order to protect the interests of the public and private water supply, groundwater, prevention of pollution, flood control, prevention of storm damage, protection of fisheries and land-containing shellfish, and protection of wildlife habitat. This evening's hearings will be followed by a regular meeting, and in accordance with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, we are conducting this meeting online to ensure public access to the deliberations of the Conservation Commission. The public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Additionally, the meeting is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please turn off your video. Members of the public may have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand or type in the chat in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute yourself. Send your questions to staff via email at cc@boston.gov or via X, formerly known as Twitter, by tagging the handle @BostonEnviro and using the hashtag ConcomHearing. For the record, I am Michael Chair. No, I'm not. I'm Michael Parker, Chair of the Commission. Thank you. Could staff please identify themselves?
Elena Itamari with the Environment Department.
Didi Hernandez with the Environment Department.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, thank you. Call the roll of commissioners present. Commissioner Sullivan?
John Sullivan.
Commissioner Long?
Nick Long.
Commissioner Wilson?
Mike Wilson.
Commissioner Herbst?
Ann Herbst.
Great, thank you. First item on the agenda this evening is notice of intent for DEP file number 0061973 and Boston file number 2023-063 from Fort Point Associates on behalf of the Esplanade Association for the proposed construction of a new welcoming destination located at 280 Charles Street in the West End neighborhood of Boston. Resource areas are 25-foot riverfront and waterfront areas and 100-foot buffer to bank. This hearing has been continued several times, originating on November 15th, 2023. Is the applicant's representative here?
Good evening, Chair Parker. My name is Katie Moniz, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Esplanade Association, and we are joined by many colleagues from the association, as well as a representative here tonight from EEA on behalf of DCR.
Fantastic. So I think where we left off was the thorny issue of the order of conditions. Last hearing we had maybe it was 2, 3, or 4 conditions that I had tweaked or edited before the hearing. You did not have a chance to fully review them and absorb them. And in the interim, I know that EA Council has reviewed the conditions and you've received them. I know that you received them fairly late in the day today. Have you had a chance to look at them and react?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Peter Mulcahy. I'm the General Counsel of EEA and the Acting General Counsel of DCR. I've reviewed the draft that's come over, and it does appear to reflect our conversation, and I think it looks good from our perspective.
Okay. Okay. And fellow commissioners, just for the record, the order of conditions that we're talking about is exactly with maybe 1 or 2 word changes that are not significant, just grammatical, what was in the file at the last hearing that we discussed. So with that, I'll go around very quickly. Elena, do you have any additional comments?
I do not. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Sullivan?
No comments.
Great. Commissioner Long?
No comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
Not here either. Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Herbst?
Nothing from me.
Great, thank you. Okay, so with that, Elena, do we have any hands up from the public for comment?
I am not seeing any hands up, and we also did not receive anything in the inbox.
Okay, great. So with that, I would entertain a motion to close this hearing and issue the order of actually issue the order of conditions and close this hearing.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Great. Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that carries 5-0. Okay, thank you and good luck. And Katie, maybe we'll see you later in the hearing. I see you've got a few things on the docket.
We do have a big evening, but on behalf of the Esplanade Association and our project team, we just want to say thank you to the commission. We know it's been a process here, but we've really appreciated your feedback and your contributions.
Fantastic. Same to you. And again, good luck to the Esplanade Association.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is notice of intent for DEP file number 0061957 and Boston file number 2023-047 from Norwood Engineering on behalf of CAD Builders for the proposed construction of a single-family home and appurtenant utilities located at 14 Toucan Road in West Roxbury. The resource area is 100-foot buffer to BVW. This has been continued from November 15th, 2023 hearing. My firm has represented an abutter to CAD in the past, so I'm going to recuse myself from this. I would entertain a motion to appoint Commissioner Herbst chair for this hearing.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Hey, Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. So commissioners may remember we had this hearing a couple things back and decided that we wanted to do a site visit, and a number of commissioners did that. And I think our concerns about the resource impacts were addressed. We didn't see issues on site, but there were a few other small issues that came up around signage and so forth. I'll give the proponent an opportunity to add anything if they want before I go to the commissioners.
Hello, commission members. My name is Alex Kraplin from Norwood Engineering. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as you said, we did a site walk, and we did make some changes to the plans as requested. We did update the topography of the plans. If you go to the, I think the second slide or third slide, actually. Yes. Sorry, one back. Yeah. So we updated the topography on this plan. We updated, we added the trees in the green space or the natural open space, which was requested at the last meeting. And on the site walk, we also discussed changing the 4-foot wide green space access easement. Rather than having steps, instead we graded the steps out completely. Now it'll be in the beginning, right from Toucan Road past the house, it'll be between an 8-to-1 and 7-to-1 slope, and then up towards the green space area, it will be 4-to-1 slope. So that way, in the winter, if nobody's, cleaning up the snow, it's safer to walk for everyone. Nobody needs to slip down a pair of stairs. And second, with that, when we graded those stairs out, we were also able to grade out the wall extending into the lot. So the backyard instead now slopes down towards the house rather than having a 4-foot wall, and then still a slope of 4-to-1, I believe it was previously. We added an erosion control barrier. We kind of just pointed it in before it was on the plan, but we didn't label it very clearly. And we did add a sign exhibit as requested, although the language on the signs, I think, will be decided later and at a separate meeting. It was for a separate subject altogether, but we wanted to show, I think it's the last slide to this, these plans. We wanted to show that where the signs would be located along the property, especially along the green space and at the property line to Boston or what is, I can't remember the exact name of the school, but at their property line, we wanted the signage to just be shown where it will be, how it will be laid out, but we believe that the language should be decided at a whole separate meeting, which we've discussed with Elena. It's a separate matter to this, these plans.
Okay. Elena, anything else from you before I go to the commissioners?
I think just maybe, yeah, I agree. We discussed having a separate meeting on this, so just noting that we'll follow up on that sooner rather than later, while it's kind of still fresh on all of our minds to get all of that resolved.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan?
No comments.
Okay. Commissioner Long?
So I know that the signage language is a separate meeting and, a separate issue. Something I was wondering about is whether the signs, the no trespassing signs and maybe the environmentally sensitive area signs could go up before construction starts. If you'd be amenable to that, Alex.
I'm sure the client, yeah, I'm sure we can discuss that with the client and have that happen. We'd need to discuss language. So yeah, the meeting, we believe we'd have to have the meeting that was part of the restoration process. So I believe once the language is decided, the applicant could get the signs made and put them up as soon as, as soon as anyone wants. I don't think that's an issue.
Wonderful. All right. That's all for me. Thanks.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, I don't have anything further either. Thanks for clarifying that, Commissioner Long.
Okay, thanks. Could you show the landscaping plan once more? Slide. I just wanted to understand, you said you were taking out the wall, but it looks like you're keeping a wall that would sort of create a barrier between the natural area.
So the landscaping plan was the one plan that wasn't updated. Although the landscaping itself will stay the same, because up at the top, the slope was similar to the previous plan. So the landscaping itself will stay the same. It's just that if you look, the wall, if you can just imagine this plan without the walls, that's exactly how it'd be.
The reason I ask is that, and I don't know if, and maybe ask Commissioner Long what he thinks, but it was providing something that I felt kept a sort of line between the natural area that's open to the public, and maybe vegetation does that, but I had sort of been counting on that as providing that barrier.
When we designed, when we took out the steps from that 4-foot access easement, it wasn't, so to grade those out, we had to remove the walls. If we wanted steps, we needed wall, it's fine. So that's how we went that route. And so because of that, there will no longer be walls, although vegetation will still be at the top of the, near the natural space area. There will still be plantings and vegetation to have that buffer.
Well, maybe it's a question of additional, the natural area signage at that location as well.
Sure, and we are proposing signage for the vegetation area. If you see the corner of the green space easement, right in that kind of, so at the property line, there will be a sign there. Right by the green space path, that will have a sign, and then at the corner as well, there will be another sign there. So along that one property line or along the line for the green space, there will be 3 signs before it even angles and continues into the other direction.
Okay, that makes sense for me. Does any other commissioner have a thought about that? Okay, so I think based on what Commissioner Long was suggested, that we perhaps would want, in the order of conditions, a requirement that the natural areas and private property signage go up before construction begins. And I know that will take additional meetings, but is that acceptable?
I'm sure that, yeah, as long, so what our thinking is, we get this approved, and then, if it's something that we can decide, with construction, for example, so rather than holding off construction and waiting another month or two for meetings to happen, if it can coincide with the construction, then we'd be fine with that. We want to be able to, pursue the construction itself as we've been continuing, or not continuing this meeting, but continually changing the plans. And that, since that was part of a separate matter, we were hoping, you know, we can get that resolved as fast as we can, but we would like to proceed into the project.
I wonder if it could say before construction or with approval of our conservation agent, if it makes sense to Elena that it's going to take a little longer, but she knows it's happening, that would be an option.
Right, and that is the exact reason we were trying to produce a plan to show where signage will be, so we can start the process, show the signs are you know, we've got a plan of where they're going.
Yep.
And then we can discuss the wording of each sign, or whatever the case may be. So then once everything's decided, they can get made and put up.
Okay.
John
And
Rockwood
my
from
apologies.
Ecotech.
Sorry.
John Rockwood from Ecotech. There's really three kinds of sign. One is basically environmentally sensitive area. One is no trespassing, and one is here's the access to the open space.
Correct.
So the signs aren't really complicated. I would expect we can propose language through your agent and get that approved and get signage made fairly quickly. It shouldn't take multiple meetings to figure out what 10 words on 3 signs are going to say.
I would expect that as well. And I apologize, I forgot to offer an opportunity for the public to speak in, so let me just do that. As a reminder to members of the public, to provide public comment, please raise your hand or type in the chat in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute yourself. Send your questions to staff via email at cc@boston.gov or via Twitter by tagging the Twitter handle at Boston Enviro and using the hashtag #ConComHearing. So give people 1 second. Elena, do we have any comments so far?
I'm not seeing any raised hands at the moment, and we didn't receive anything in the inbox. And Chair Herbst, if this was a good time for me to suggest something, would that be okay?
Certainly.
So I was just going to flag, so the, excuse me, the prior to commencement of work conditions that we have drafted for 14 Toucan include submitting submit a construction materials and equipment staging plan 30 days prior to the commencement of work. So I would say that there's already kind of that 30-day buffer where we would require that 30 days prior to the commencement of work. And I agree with the sentiment that John shared, that it should be relatively quick for us to get this sorted out. So I think just a prior to commencement of work condition requiring that we get the language on the signs sorted out. I think as soon as we're able to sort out who it is at Roxbury Latin that we will be coordinating with on that, commission staff will make our best efforts to move that along quickly so that we can get that sorted out and the project can move forward.
Okay, and to clarify, I think we were, at least my intent was to say that the sign should be installed.
Right. So determining the language and having those signs installed. And sorry, what I don't think I did a good job of describing that. I more meant that we obviously wouldn't want to hold the project up, but because we already have this standard condition in here that prior to the commencement of work, we need to get the staging plan 30 days before work begins. We're already kind of working with that 30-day buffer. So if we can get that language determined within that 30 days, and then hopefully get those signs installed. I just meant that hopefully, we can kind of do that within that time period that we're waiting anyway.
Sorry, I missed that. Thank you very much. So I think I would be ready to entertain a motion to issue the order of conditions with the proviso that the sign language is agreed upon and installed prior to construction.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Sorry, second.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Just so you know, I do have a connection with the school as well, so I can coordinate between the school and the applicant and the commission
Thank you.
relative to getting sign language approved.
Great.
Okay, great.
Chair Parker, there he is.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is notice of intent for DEP file number 0061977 and Boston file number 2024-001 from Eastie Farm for the proposed installation of 20 60-foot long marsh grass planter ropes located at 102 Border Street in East Boston. Resource areas are designated port area, land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal beach, and 100-foot buffer to coastal bank. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Hello, Louisa Wise here representing Eastie Farm.
Great. Anyone else?
I believe we also have Annette representing Eastie Farm and Salvatore Colombo, who's the property owner.
Hi,
Fantastic.
everyone.
Hello.
President Annette from Eastie Farm.
Okay.
All right.
Well, floor is all yours.
Great. I have a few slides. Should I share? Yeah. Yeah, so this is just an overview of our project. This is the site here at 102 Border Street. I go into more details in the next slide. Yep, so the project is the installation of biomass fiber planters. Purpose is the investigation of novel approaches to coastal resilience projects and their contributions to ecological and social community resilience. So this is a project being led by Eastie Farm in collaboration with Emerald Tutu and Northeastern. And it's going to be located at the abandoned site at 102 Border Street. Next slide. So the existing conditions, it was a former dry dock, now an empty upland lot. There's remnants of former use in the intertidal zone, which is where this project will be based. Next slide, please. So this is what it would look like. There's going to be 10 pairs of nylon rope staked into the intertidal zone. In between those pairs is going to be this biomass substrate, which is going to be materials composed coconut fiber, salt hay, hemp fibers, and then marsh plants, mostly Spartina alterniflora. Next slide. And these are the resource impact areas. So there's negligible impact, or the standards are being met for all resource areas. And that's all for the overview. Take any questions.
Okay, great, thank you. First question, and I think we're going to talk about this later, actually 2 questions. One is, what do you propose to do with this structure? Is it for research purposes and then will be removed within the next 3 years? Or is it something that will or could become permanent?
For the purpose of this project, it's research that will be done throughout the continuation of the year, but upon completion will be removed.
You'll be dismantling it. I'm sorry, you cut out.
Will be removed. Yes, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So on that, it would be good if prior to construction, you could submit your plan on
removal.
down. I mean, I assume it's the mirror image backwards of putting it up, but we would just need that for the file. The second question I have is, and this comes up a lot in great projects like this that has a lot of community input and I assume some volunteers. As far as the maintenance of the structure, who's going to be maintaining it and how are they trained?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is the project is led by Emerald Tutu and Northeastern, and it's working with students that are in a program that is run by Eastie Farm. So the professionals from Northeastern who are experienced with salt marsh plants will be leading in training the students, and then same with Emerald Tutu. They have experience working in the water and with marshland plants and training the students.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you. Great project. That's all I have. Elena, do you have any?
I do not have anything further on this, with the exception of potentially recommending a condition that commission staff be provided with perhaps quarterly reports detailing the conditions and the results of the project thus far, hopefully mirroring something that the proponent would be providing to other parties as well.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Great, good. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I was just a little confused as to what are we trying to research and determine? What is so different about this than restoring or planting a salt marsh somewhere? Is it different plants, or what are we researching?
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. So we are testing the genetic biodiversity of the plants. So they're collected from a few different areas. And then also the substrate that they're being planted in is not typical to a natural marsh, but when we're trying to restore marshes or engineer new marshes, we're trying to see what kind of different substrates we can work with. So those are the two factors that we're researching.
Right, and all that can occur within a 3-year time frame? So you'll
Yes.
know at the end it works or it doesn't?
We'll know more than we knew from
Okay.
the beginning. I don't think
So-
anything is absolute, but yeah.
Yeah. So when you come for the 3-year extension, we'll know that we're not
Sure.
quite there yet. All right, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Long?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Seems like a neat project. I just had a couple minor questions. One of them was about the substrate mix planters, and I know that those are going to be kind of drawn up by the fellows, but I was curious what might those look like?
Yeah, so it will be mostly based on experiments Emerald Tutu has done, where they're using a coconut fiber net and stuffing the net with different biomass fibers and then tying those to the staked ropes. So that's how it will all be contained. All natural materials, and the net provides a really strong, cohesive material. Does that
Gotcha.
answer your question?
It does, thank you. The other one was, and I'm sorry if you included this, but I didn't see it, was how many stakes or steel screw anchors or rebar you intend to use, and where they will be?
Yeah, they'll be spaced every 4 feet. Sorry, so how many and where they'll be?
Yeah, I was,
Yeah.
I think like, I know you may not have a graphic representation, but if you could describe it.
Yeah, if you go back a few slides, if that's possible. Yeah, here, so pretty much where there's like a green dot, there would be a stake. And then so it starts in the upper tidal zone and goes outward.
Okay, yep, that makes sense. What do those steel screw anchors look like? I don't think they were in the spec drawings, but is that like a
Yeah.
standard marine grade thing that I might not know about?
Yeah, we're kind of between a few different options. We had actually submitted one with steel screw anchors and then changed it to this rebar, which it kind of just looks like a candy cane.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, pretty typical.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I think we'd all be interested in seeing the results coming in with those quarterly updates, and maybe I'll see you out in Eastie sometime. But
Great,
that's all I
yeah,
got.
thank you.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, I was just curious about sort of this on-site signage. I mean, it's a little bit outside of our purview, but just one of those things where once these things go out there, people start asking questions, and I'm might be helpful to have an answer nearby or some updates. And then, you know, and I'm sure you have a robust community engagement strategy already. So just curious.
Yeah, we don't have any signage developed yet, but I think that's going to be part of the process as this project develops. It's going to be designed primarily by the students with advice from Northeastern and Emerald Tutu. But I think that, you know, they'll love to engage in sign making and making it clear to them and also to their community members.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Herbst?
Yeah, just a question. So will they be staked directly into the ground? Like they'll be in contact with the ground?
The ropes will be staked to the ground, and then the planters will be tied between the ropes.
I guess I'm trying to understand, are they sitting on the ground or are they sort of floating above the ground?
A little bit of both, depending on the tide.
Okay, so they're gonna move with the tide, these planters.
Yeah, they're intertidal, so they'll be submerged for both, but the materials will not be staked, so they'll have the ability to move.
So how far above the ground is the rope?
I mean, the rope will sit on the ground at low tide, but then it will be, it's not on, so it's not buoyant, but it will be able to.
I guess I'm trying to understand how much play is there? Like, are they going up?
Yeah.
All the way with the tide, or?
Yeah, they'll be able to rise all the way with the tide. So I guess it'll depend on where the exact planter is and how much, you know, like close to the shore, there's less than a foot of tidal difference, but if it's a little bit out, there'll be more.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you. Elena, any raised hands from the public?
Yes, I see one raised hand. Oh, wait, maybe the hand went down. Oh no, the hand's back up.
Hi there, thank you. My name is Magdalena. I represent the Harbor Keepers. We have done some kayak programming from the public boat launch right there adjacent, or maybe, I'm not sure if the proposed site, Annette, is also right on the kayak launch, but I'm wondering, have you considered that there is a public kayak launch there that is used by not just our programs, but other members of the public? And how would that affect, you know, floating, you know, ropes and such and bars? You know, how would that affect the safety there? I'm just curious to know.
Okay, and I think we have the property owner with us as well. It's East Boston CDC, right? Is that you, Mr. Colombo?
Yes. First of all, I want to say that we're a strong supporter of this project. We feel they have some excellent ideas. We wish them the best of luck in the research, because with the climate change going on, any initiative that develops into a great idea is worth pursuing. And I'm familiar with what Magdalena has brought up. The launch is you know, about 50 yards away, and I don't see an issue. I feel once the kayak is in the water, this stuff will be very visible. There won't be. I mean, assuming a kayak doesn't decide to try to drive through the grass, there shouldn't be a problem at all. And I'm sure, you know, for some additional ideas might be to put some buoys or something that have some fluorescent paint or something that will even highlight the area as staying away from it.
Okay. Magdalena, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, thank you, Sal. And, you know, just want to express our, you know, gratefulness to Sal and the East Boston CDC for supporting our kayak program. I think it is just a lot to be learned. We're not sure. I think the tidal fluctuations, they vary. Sometimes you get out there in a kayak and you don't go exactly where you want to go. It depends on, you know, the tides and the way the water is moving and the wind. So I guess it's all an experiment, but I support this project in the sense that it's obviously, you know, gathering research that's really critical for climate change. I'm just a little bit concerned about the safety with the kayak launches, but we could see how it works out. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
thanks for the question, Magdalena. And thinking about signage, we'll definitely consider that. And I think the buoys will be a good idea, but also having signage out by the kayak launch
Thank you. Thanks, Annette.
Sounds like you're all very familiar with each other, so I'm sure you'll resolve any conflicts that might come up. So thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'm not seeing any other raised hands, and we didn't receive anything in the inbox. I also just wanted to flag that staff had worked with the Eastie Farm team prior to the hearing to revise one of our standard conditions. Instead of having the site required to be secured, where we modified that condition to say that they would be placing signage around the project site, informing passerbys of the research project and also encouraging them to not enter the project site, not disturb anything happening there. So they'll be submitting that signage to staff for approval as they develop it. So yeah, that was a good flag though. I think people will be interested in this project.
Okay, and so that's already in the conditions then?
That's already in the conditions. The only thing we could change is depending on the commission's preferences, we could move that condition as a prior to commencement of work condition rather than a general condition as it stands right now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's probably safe to move it to prior.
Great, I'll do that.
Okay, so with that, I'd entertain a motion to close the hearing and issue the order of conditions with the changes that Elena had just mentioned regarding signage, and also that, and Louisa, help me with this, that you will be providing we have quarterly updates. I assume that you're generating some reports for the grantor. So is it quarterly? Is it biannually, annually? What makes sense here?
Yeah, I can actually speak to this
Thanks.
if helpful. And thank you, Magdalena, for your question too. I wanted to acknowledge you and for bringing that up. And thank you all. So there will be reports will be presenting to the National Science Foundation every other month. And so we're happy to include all of you in those updates as well, and including the information requests.
Great, good, thank you. So the special condition added will be that you will, that Eastie Farm will provide reports that they generate and submit to the National Science Foundation concurrently to the Conservation Commission staff. Would someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, notice of intent for DEP file number 0061982 and Boston file number 2024-006 from Green International Affiliates, Inc. on behalf of the Massachusetts Port Authority for the proposed expansion and build out of an additional container storage area on the former coastal oil site to the west of Conley Terminal, located at 700 Summer Street, South Boston. Resource areas are land subject to coastal storm flowage, 100-foot buffer to bank, and designated port area. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, Madeline Sewell, Environmental Manager for Massport. I am also joined by several other folks from Massport, Chet Myers and Kevin McQueenie, as well as the team from Green. Before I pass it over to Green, I wanted to just give a little bit of historical context on this project. If I could advance slides and just borrow one of Green's slides, one more. Thank you. So this project is one of the final phases of the Conley Terminal expansion project, which was planned and designed to allow for development of an undeveloped parcel purchased by Massport in 2008, which was located west of the existing Conley Terminal operations at that time. At that time, all the trucks visiting Conley Terminal access the terminal via the Farragut Road entrance to the south using East First Street. As part of the planning and design, Massport implemented a robust community outreach program with the South Boston community, stakeholder groups, advisory planning groups, and the overall project also went through the MEPA environmental notification form process and was granted an ENF certificate in 2013. As part of Massport's work with the community, it incorporated several mitigations into the overall project, Those included construction of the new dedicated freight corridor on Conley Terminal exclusively for trucks. So that's the road coming down from Summer Street directly into the terminal, and that removed traffic off of East First Street. Massport also constructed a noise barrier within the terminal along the south, and the Thomas J. Butler Memorial Park along East First Street as well, which created a buffer between future operations, as well as creating new green space, a dog park, and additional public parking along East First Street. So Massport agreed to construct all the mitigation items before it expanded into the undeveloped area to create additional container storage space. Those mitigation items were completed in 2017, and this proposed project is basically the main portion of the final phase of the Conley Terminal expansion to the west. As I said, that involves development of the remaining undeveloped parcel for container storage. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Danielle Spicer from Green.
Great, thank you.
Matt. Thank you. So that gives you kind of a little bit of a background. You can see the project limits for the M549 project. If you advance to the next slide, I'm just going to talk about the work in the resource areas. So what we have, as what was already previously mentioned, we have work, there is Coastal Bank that's adjacent to the site. We're within a designated port area, and we're within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The work associated with the expansion of this terminal is all in the upland area. There is no in-water work, and there's actually, the work is actually all above the existing bank. So this just shows the existing impact areas. And actually, if you go to the next slide, this will just show the work within land subject to coastal storm flowage. So majority of the terminal is located within that area. The next two slides just show some existing pictures. If you can go to the next slide, this just shows the undeveloped portion of the terminal. We're actually looking to the north towards berth 10, and then the reserve channel is actually behind there. So it just shows the undeveloped portion of it. And actually, if we go to the next slide, this just shows looking south towards the Lobsterman Cove of this area. The proposed project is actually to the left in this one, and this just shows the existing outfalls from the existing terminal that go discharge out into Lobsterman's Cove. So I'm going to jump to the proposed stuff. If you actually go to the next slide. So this just shows the proposed pavement that will include the new heavy duty pavement, the extension of the RTG rails for the container storage and transportation, extension of the existing trench drains to capture stormwater runoff. I'll show some of the utilities and stuff a little bit later, but we're including site electrical infrastructure, improved security measures, and a new seafarers walkway that abuts the container storage area. And if you're looking at this plan on the upper left-hand corner, that will go west to east along Lobsterman Cove, and then it will go north to south right along there. So it's that little backwards L in that upper left-hand area for the new Seafarers Walkway. There will be proposed drainage improvements as well that will be tying into the existing system with stormwater treatment prior to the area. So right now, under existing conditions, everything in this undeveloped area just sheet flows off with no treatment. Under the proposed conditions, there will be full treatment. So actually, if you go to the next slide, it shows the proposed grading. So if we're looking at the plan, the southern part of the terminal is actually going to be the highest point, and actually everything will sheet flow from south to north. We actually have two sets of trench drains that I'll go into a little bit more detail just in the next slide, but just grading wise, there are two new trench drains between, one of them is going to be between H and G, and then there's another one that's an extension of existing one between E and F. And those will connect into proposed water quality structure, existing water quality structure that was sized for the entire terminal prior to outflowing through those existing outfalls. So we will not need to modify the existing outfalls. The sizing of the system was already done for the full development. So we're just adding in the existing trench drains to go along with the proposed improvements. So the next slide shows the proposed utilities that will be taking place. So you can kind of see in orange. It's a little bit hard. I'm sorry. It's, there's a lot going on, but between G and H, you can see the long proposed trench drain that will collect there. And then between E and 4, you can see on the right-hand side, there's an existing trench drain, and then the darker orange is a proposed trench drain that will collect into the existing drainage system that will go through the existing outfalls. In addition, we have proposed water systems, as well as some high mass light poles and electrical systems that are shown in red for proposed systems. And then the next slide. So this is just showing we are within land subject to coastal storm flowage. This is that cut and fill that's showing anything in red is basically a cut, anything in blue is a fill. And what's happened here is there's an existing depression at the northern portion of the site that, and basically due to the need for the newly developed area to match existing grades for the rest of the terminal, the project will result in filling within the floodplain. It's unavoidable just due to the nature of the project and within the site limits, but it is land subject to coastal storm flowage that we feel once, even with the fill of this, should not result in any changes to coastal flooding within the harbor area. And then the next slide. This just shows a rendering of the proposed terminal once it's all completed and what it will look like and how the rest of the expansion will meet up with the existing. So with that, I guess I'd like to just turn it over to questions from the commission.
Okay, great. Thank you. Elena, do you have anything on this?
I just wanted to note for the commission that we had received a few emails. So there's a public comments folder in the drive folder for the commissioners to review.
Okay, thank you. I looked at that. What I saw was something about noise, and I think you rightly referred that commenter to the Environment Department, another part of the Environment Department. Was there anything else?
No, that was it. And we have also worked with Massport to get a contact that we can direct future questions that might be slightly out of the Conservation Commission's purview to the right people who can answer their questions more effectively.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think Commissioner Sullivan wants to talk about the outfall, maybe. So Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, well, my only question was, I assume those outfalls are covered by the existing EPA NPDES permit. Is that correct?
They will be, yes. They we have an NOI that's being submitted to incorporate them.
And you said the water quality units were already sized. Is there one unit or several units? And what kind are they?
Sure, it's a Vortechnics 700 series, and it is one unit. It's pretty large unit, and it was sized for the entire buildup.
Yeah. And how long does a storage unit sit in when you put it down, how long does it stay there? Or how often are those things moved around?
I'll defer to Kevin on that one.
Yeah, either Kevin or Chet
I can probably answer
Massport might be able to.
Commissioner Sullivan, this is Chet Myers. I'm the Assistant Director for Maritime at Massport. So it varies depending on the type of container and who is coming to pick it up. So there's two primary operations at the terminal. There's an operation to unload ships, at which point containers are unloaded off of ships and placed into the stacks. And then trucking companies come to collect the containers. So trucks then circulate through the facility after the ship operation is complete. And those containers are unloaded from the stacks and onto trucks. So it varies somewhat, partially because some containers are empty and some containers are full. Some containers are refrigerated, some containers are not refrigerated, and therefore the residence time at the facility will vary somewhat, but usually they're picked up within a week of having been delivered.
Yeah, I was trying to determine how often trucks from other areas that may not be carrying debris and dirt enter there, load up and take off. That's all.
Well, we usually get about 500 truck trips per day into Conley Terminal.
What a deal. Well, I hope that Vortechnics is kept clean, but we'll just watch the permit. That's all I had.
Great, thank you. Chet, follow up on that. Do you have a truck wash?
Yeah,
Do you
I'm
need-
sorry.
Do you have a truck wash? Do you need that as part of your permit?
I do not believe that that is required as part of our permit, and Conley Terminal does not have a truck wash. Although we do, to be clear, do wheel washes for trucks that arrive and leave from our construction sites on site.
Right. No, I apologize. I talking about a wheel wash. Right. So it sounds like you have a wheel wash system.
For our construction projects, but not
For
for
construction,
trucks
but
that
not
come
for
and go
the
from-
everyday.
Right, trucks that come and go and collect containers are traveling on asphalt throughout the entire facility, so there really isn't a need for wheel washes before they leave the facility.
Got it. Commissioner Long,
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson,
Nothing here either, thanks.
Commissioner Herbst.
Just curious, looking at your plans, there are several that cover a tunnel demolition and filling. I didn't remember hearing anything about that, so I was just wondering if you could say what that is about.
Sure, there's an existing portion of the tunnel that has already been filled within where the where the existing asphalt is, and already at the bulkhead. So this is literally just the one piece that's left between will be demoed and filled to allow for the proposed project just over it. So it's just the filling of that last little piece that's remaining there.
Danielle, do you want to talk about, or Kevin, do you want to talk about the history of the tunnel and the purpose of the tunnel?
Yes, the tunnels are basically remnants from the old NBK coal-fired power plant that used to exist on that site. Just to the western portion of the old coastal site sat that facility. It would have been located south of the Lobsterman's abatement, and it had tunnels for intake water, outflow for processed water for the plant. And it's just, as I said, a remnant of that former facility. Obviously, we're building upon it, so we want to fill that in so that we don't have the sinkholes or any other problems in the future.
I see. Thank you.
That's it? Okay. Okay, Elena, any hands raised?
I'm not seeing any hands raised, and we didn't have anything further in the inbox.
Great, thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion to issue the order of conditions and close this hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye, that carries 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Next
you.
item on the agenda is a notice of intent for DEP file number 0061981 and Boston file number 2024-005 from 4 Point Associates Inc. on behalf of the Boston Harbor Shipyard and Marina for the proposed work to conduct 51 test borings and 8 test pits for geotechnical analysis and preliminary evaluation of subsurface materials located at 256 Marginal Street in East Boston. Resource areas are designated port area, land under ocean, fish runs, land subject to coastal storm flowage, rocky intertidal, and 100-foot buffer to coastal bank. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jamie Fay with Fort Point Associates. I'll be kicking off this presentation.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We're here tonight to talk about some early exploratory work that Boston Harbor Shipyard and Marina is proposing to undertake. I've been involved with the shipyard for probably 20 years, come before the commission a dozen times for approval of various things. And this is sort of a new phase that's being initiated, and we will be back many, many more times before you for various projects when we get to that phase. But I want to say tonight I am joined here by Erica Frazier, my staff and environmental planner, who's going to run you through the presentation. Ann Lagasse, who may be known to many of you from Ocean Havens, is the owner of the shipyard operations. Marshall Greenland, who's the project manager for the shipyard. We have from Massport, Chris Bush and Pam Carnevale. If you have questions for Massport, since they are the landowner. And we have other technical consultants here as well, including Carlos Pena and Fiona Vardy from Foth, and Sal Lamontina, who works with the shipyard. So we have a full team. Hopefully we can answer any questions. I know there have been some interest in this project from the neighborhood. So with that, I will turn it over to Erica, can run you through the presentation of what we're proposing, and then we can try to answer any questions the commission or the public may have.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you to the commission for the opportunity to present. Elena, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. The applicant filed a notice of intent for the geotechnical analysis and preliminary evaluation of the subsurface materials at the shipyard. And the proposed work includes 34 test borings on land, 17 test borings in water, and 8 test pits. You can go to the next slide, please. The shipyard consists of several types of uses, including a marina and shipyard repair business, food and beverage, a community arts facility, a steel fabrication facility, and an office building. These geotechnical investigations will provide crucial insights into the stability and durability of the subsurface materials for the applicant's plans to significantly improve the shipyard in the future. Next slide, please. So the wetland resource areas that are regulated under the Wetland Protection Act include coastal bank, coastal beach, land under ocean, banks of and land under the ocean that underlie anadromous and catadromous fish, which is also known as a fish run, land under ocean in a designated port area, which is the East Boston DPA. Land subject to coastal storm flowage, which includes both Zone AE and Zone VE, and the 100-foot coastal bank buffer zone. Next slide, please. So the project has been designed to avoid impacts to wetland resource areas and minimize impacts to areas where they're unavoidable, but overall, they're expected to be temporary due to the nature of work. The wetland resource areas on site that will be temporarily impacted include land under ocean, fish run, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the 100-foot buffer zone. So 32 of the land borings will result in approximately 3 square feet of impacts. The water borings will result in 1.5 square feet of impacts, and the 8 test pits will result in approximately 2,000 square feet of impacts, and then the soil stockpiles from those test pits will result in 6,000 square feet of impacts. The on-land borings will be drilled using a truck-mounted drill rig, as you can see in the left image, and the water borings will be taken from a drill rig staged upon a barge, as you can see in the middle image, and then the test pits, as you can see, will be excavated in the right images. Next slide, please. So these are the locations of the on-land borings. And as I said, we'll use a truck-mounted drill rig using rotary wash and bore techniques, and they'll be fully encased through the water column, and the drill spoils will be containerized in a steel tub. And then upon completing the test borings, they'll be backfilled with the drill cuttings or containerized in drums for future disposal. Next slide, please. These are the proposed locations of the water borings. So the barge will be held in place by line connections to the shore or existing structures. And when line connections aren't feasible, a maximum of 4 50-pound anchors will be used to secure the barge, which we've estimated to have a temporary impact of 20 square feet. Same as the other test borings on land, the drill spoils will be containerized in a steel tub located on the boring barge, and then upon completion, containerized in drums for future disposal. Next slide, please. These are the locations of the test pits. The pavement will be stop cut, and the soil will be removed by an excavator and temporarily stockpiled adjacent to the test pit. The excavated soils will be returned to the open pit and then compacted, and then the pavement will be patched with asphalt. Next slide, please. So the project will cause few, if any, primary impacts to wetland resource areas. And the applicant and team has committed to avoid and eliminate secondary impacts and will ensure that proper mitigation measures are in place. These include implementing sediment and erosion controls, informed best practices by an LSP, and many more mitigation measures. Next slide, please. And with that, thanks again for the opportunity to present, and I'm happy to help answer any questions.
Great, thank you. Did have a few questions. Your slide answered a lot of them. So the especially the drillings in the water, that's all going to be self-contained. So there's no chance of any spoils leaking out, hitting the seafloor. I assume for the barge, you have a spill protection plan?
The proposed conditions are very similar to ones we've worked with in the past, and yes, that will require us to submit a spill containment plan prior to operations for approval by the commission.
Fantastic. How long do you think you'll employ the use of a barge?
Let me suggest Carlos Pena can answer that better than me in terms of the duration of the in-water borings.
Thank you, Jane. Good afternoon, everyone. Carlos Pena from both Infrastructure and Environment. At most, we'll probably have, it's 3 days per boring. So with 17, there'll be 51 days.
Okay, thank you. I noticed that you're having an LSP. Is the LSP on site or drops in every once in a while? So and this question is leading to, I understand that these are geotechnical borings, but are you anticipating that you might encounter some environmental legacy here?
We don't, Mr. Chairman. We have reviewed the current status of the site with an LSP, Matt Madden, who's on the call here, if you have specific questions, but the site has been reviewed by DEP and closed out. So there are no restrictions on the carrying out of these borings and test pits. Yeah, I think we feel quite confident that basically we're going to be drilling very small borings in the soils. They'll either be placed back into the hole or containerized and disposed of properly.
Okay, is there a AUL, activity and use limitation, on the property?
There is, and the activities that we're talking about are allowed under the AUL.
Great. Okay. Okay, and I assume, and we've gotten some public commentary about this. If you do encounter any reportable concentrations, that's going to be a matter of public record. And if you do, if you could send that report to us concurrently with your filing to DEP, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Elena, do you have anything on this?
I just wanted to flag for the commissioners again that there are those emails that are in a folder in the drive for your review, and then that we had just offline connected with the team and modified, let's see, I believe it was condition number 47 to take out a reference to the ordinance. So in order to reflect the rest of the conditions that are in there as well.
And we did have an opportunity to do a site visit last week with your staff, so I think that was really helpful in kind of understanding the scope of the work and the location where it's taking place.
Okay, thank you. Elena, could you repeat what condition it was again? 64, did you say?
Sorry, it was 47. I thought that was just an oversight from earlier. So we had modified that to mirror the language that was in the rest of the conditions as well, to refer to the act and not to the ordinance.
Okay, that's a spill management condition. Let me look at it, and let's go to Commissioner Sullivan, and I might come back with a question for that. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I understand the reason for all the different borings, the geotech reasons. What is the purpose for all of those test pits that you're doing, and how deep are they? And are they being backfilled the same day you dig them?
So the purpose of The test pits are really just to take an opportunity to see what is in the locations where we may be thinking about placing structures in the future and learning a little bit more about the soil conditions there as opposed to just a small hole, which, you know, gives good geotechnical information, but it's only one spot. So those test pits will be dug and backfilled within probably a couple of hours. They're not going to be open for any length of time at all.
Right. And in general, how big is one test pit and how deep does it go?
About 8 feet deep would be the maximum, and I don't know, it's probably 8 or 10 feet long and the width of a bucket.
Yep. All right, that's all I had. I assume that's what you were looking for, but I didn't know if you're looking for artifacts or you knew some old buildings were there. That's where the pirates left the map. I didn't know.
We're hoping we don't find any buried bodies, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think he was looking for treasure, not so much that, Jamie. Commissioner Long,
Nothing for me. Thank you.
thank you. Commissioner Wilson,
Yeah, no, I was wondering where X marks the spot on these maps, right? So, no, I guess I'm sympathetic to some of the concerns that the public have raised, and I feel like we've, there's some jurisdictional things, but then there's other things that are just concerns because this is new to your neighborhood or is, you know, a growth of an activity in a certain neighborhood as well. And I guess the one question I would have for the proponent is that we have had some folks who split, say, the borings from the test pit process, and I was wondering, given that it's, you know, put together in this proposal, what the reasoning was for that.
I'm not sure I understand the question, Commissioner. Why would
Commissioner Wilson, are you asking, let me try to rephrase it. Are you asking why they're not doing split samples or why they are doing split samples?
I don't know the term of the art for split samples,
The
but
split samples would be the creation of 2 samples of the soils as opposed to one, and one sample goes to one party, another sample goes to another.
Oh, sorry. No. I just meant that in terms of like doing the borings versus the test pits all as one scope of work, rather than do the borings. Okay, we have a good sense of geotech. Now we know what we could build here. Let's go to do the test pits because now we need to check. You know, whether it's the same contractor, whether you already have a good sense of the geotech, and this is just confirmatory. I was just curious.
Well, I think the answer to it's a great question, and I think the answer is, you know, you learn different things from those 2 different types of geotechnical investigations, and the borings go down to bedrock, right? So they're going to tell you how deep you have to go if you want to drive a pile to get down on bearing surface. The test pits really tell you what's obviously near surface, and this is a very old shipyard. It's been, you know, a shipyard for more than 200 years, and there are things buried that we would like to know about before we start to plan and design foundation. So, for example, like there are many old structures there that were constructed in the past that have since been filled in, and we have some records, but we don't have great records, and the test pits will allow us to see actually what's in a particular location. So you could drill a boring and not know that there's some timber piles. You know, you might miss the timber pile, but right next to it, when you do the test pit, you might find you hit something. So those are the kind of things that we're looking to learn by the test pit. So we need all 3 sets: in water borings for the structures that we could be thinking about building in the water, on land borings, and test pits.
Okay, all right, that's helpful to know that sort of parallel methods of investigation is, you know, going to give you different information as opposed to it's, you know, it'd be sequential and you know, you're, you know, whatever, enhancing the amount of information you have. Yeah, that was my main question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Herbst?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay, Elena, anything from the public? Any raised hands? I see a few.
Yes, I'm seeing a few hands raised. I believe Magdalena's was raised first.
Thank you so much, members of the commission. I have a question about, we didn't really have a chance to look at the documents that we found, public documents way back from 2008, but I skimmed through them right before this hearing, and I don't know if this is accurate information. I'm assuming it is. It's Mass DEP documents. It says that there was borings done prior to 2008, and they found that it was a tier 2. Well, they designated it as a tier 2 site, that it does have hazardous materials, including VOCs, arsenic, lead, chromium, and other detectable trace. So I'm wondering, was that remediated, and is it still classified as a tier 2 site?
So I'm gonna ask, I could answer that, but I think Matt Madden, who is an LSP from Tetra Tech, could answer that better than me. So I'm gonna give him an opportunity to respond to your question, Magdalena.
Thank you, Jenny.
Sure, thanks. Good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Madden. I'm with Tetra Tech and LSP. And to answer your question, so it was identified as a tier 2 site when it was being assessed at that time. Tier 2 is the lower level of, say, contamination under the MCP. So that's very typical for a site like this to be identified as a tier 2 site. I think more importantly, it was assessed and it was closed under the MCP through the submittal of a response action outcome in 2010. When that document was submitted and the activity and use limitation, or the AUL, was submitted at the same time. So via that response action outcome in AUL, it essentially closes the site from DEP's perspective. The contaminants are known, the risks are assessed, and the AUL defines what can and can't be done on the site. And it does allow for this type of investigation that we're proposing here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else, Magdalena?
No, I was just going to say, would it be possible for members of the public, including more importantly, the abutters, to really have a chance to look at the response from SDP that you're referring to in 2010? And if the members of the commission could actually, take a look at those reports before moving forward on anything, just as a matter of, knowledge gathering. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have Mary Cole.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. I had submitted a letter and I received, and thank you, Erica Frazier from Fort Point Associates. Erica forwarded me a memo today detailing there's no mention of dust mitigation, and I'm in a butter. There's no mention of dust mitigation in the NOI, but she submitted a memo detailing the dust mitigation plans for the site. She also forwarded a memo from Tetra Tech, which refers to the Mass DEP release tracking number 326551 and includes the site assessment response action outcome and the AUL that we've been discussing. The things that I noticed in kind of a quick, because I just got that this morning and I had other commitments today, as Magdalena mentioned, it's not a lot of time to look through these things, especially for a layperson. But what I noticed that the previous analysis was done on a fairly small central part of the site. And the test pits that are being proposed, test pit 1, 2, and 3, are outside of the area that was tested previously. I'm wondering, will there be testing for toxins that will go on as part of this program of test boring and pit excavation? Because I think that'd be very valuable since much of this is happening outside of the site that was originally evaluated. And I was struck again by the level and variety of toxins, arsenic, very high levels of lead, chromium, PCBs, including Arachlor 1260, petroleum hydrocarbons, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. So a lot of stuff that was found in that previous report. And the ALU, well, it does allow construction. It prohibits lengthy construction without quite a lot of oversight and mitigation, and it prohibits high intensity activities which have the potential to disturb soil enough to result in direct contact with the soil or the inhalation of soil derived dust. So as someone who lives within 50 feet of test pit number 1, it raised some concerns for me.
Okay, thank you. So I think it was Matt, the LSP, has the answer to Ms. Cole's question.
Sure. Yeah, so one point is that the LSP that did that assessment at the time, they have the responsibility to assess based on what they see to sort of determine the extent of contamination and then assess the risk that they see. There's ways to calculate risk based on what's found. I would say that these are contaminants that are typical in this type of an urban environment. So it's not unusual. So I think that the AUL does require LSP oversight for construction longer than 6 months. Now we are providing, LSP oversight even for this short investigation. And if there's something unusual seen, I think we would certainly respond to that as required by Mass DEP. So I hope that answers your question. I think that obviously we're obligated to comply with the activity use limitation and also to prevent dust during the work. The fact that the test pits aren't going to be open for very long and that the material is going back in and the pavement will be patched after the test pits are done, I think limits any potential exposure.
And I just want to add to that, Ms. Cole, that our jurisdiction is limited to the protection of the wetland resource areas here. As far as the handling, and sometimes they overlap, but as far as the process and the procedures for how the testing is done, how if any hazardous waste is found, is regulated, disposed of, or analyzed or tested, that is the subject of a very rigorous regulatory regime administered by DEP called Chapter 21E Superfund Law. And the regulations are the Mass Contingency Plan. And all of those documents, and Magdalena found them, are on DEP's website. And I think you referenced the RTN number. That's the reference to find out what's going on with the site from that perspective. So, okay, thank you for your question. Elena, anyone else?
There's a question in this chat from Gail Miller asking, would you explain the water testing and how the mechanism contains spillage?
Okay, I think I asked that question. Jamie, did you answer that before, or was it Erica?
Well, let me try to answer Gail's question again anyway. So I think she's referring to the water borings, right? And so the water borings take place on a barge and they are contained within a pipe that goes down into the seabed. So there's really nothing that would allow that to kind of leak out into the harbor. The drillings themselves will be containerized or put back into the hole from the barge. So in the normal course of events, there is no spillage, but we also do have, as you asked, Mr. Chairman, there is a contingency plan for spill. So yes, there is a contingency plan in case a hose breaks or something else happens. There will be equipment on site to respond to that.
Okay, thank you. So can we quickly go back to condition 47? Elena, you said you removed reference to the act in 47. I'm not seeing where it would have been in the first place. I
noticed you may have been in the Conley conditions earlier.
Okay.
It's the any remediation, removal, or stockpiling of hazardous material within an area subject to protection under the act shall comply with the following provisions. And then it goes on to list 4 bullet points under that.
Oh, right, right. Okay, makes sense. Wait, so why did we remove ordinance?
We had discussed internally, as we were reviewing this filing, that in this case, we agreed with the proponent's assertion that the borings would be part of essential Massport functions. That's not to say that that's not to say that all future projects would be essential Massport functions, but in this case, considering the borings are being done to determine what possibilities there are on site to further develop the area, sorry, I'm doing a poor job.
So Chet, you've always been very gracious, and for the sake of argument, I'll just agree with that interpretation. But you've always been very gracious about coming in, presenting your plans. And I don't know if Chet is on for this one or it's Chris, but you've also been very good about accepting our orders of conditions and saving any sort of argument for the future. I guess I would ask you, do you have any objection to putting, reinserting under the ordinance in the act here? Who's here on behalf of Massport? Is no one here?
I'm still on. This is Madeline. I was kind of just listening in this one.
Oh,
Chris was
sorry,
taking the.
Madeline.
Chris
Okay.
was. Chris needs to be unmuted. I'm not sure. You just put that in the chat.
Chris, are you seeing anything on your end? It says ask to unmute, but it doesn't seem to be doing much.
Chris doesn't want to talk. Chris, can you put something in the chat? Okay, it looks like he might not be on even. Okay, okay, it's a minor point. I think you could just let it go.
You're getting a comment from him
Okay.
in the chat.
I'm just saying, given the work is related to Massport property and the assessment of site conditions, Am I missing something? Yep.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, this is a dilemma. I guess I could go along with the fact that these test borings from Massport, wanting to know the condition of the property and the soil suitability for future work that might be within the within an essential government service. We could let this go, but I'm on the fence about it. But for the sake of argument, I'll just let it go. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to issue the order of conditions and close the hearing.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Long?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We appreciate your time and attention to this matter, and we look forward to learning the results and coming back to you with actually more specific plans of work that would like to be done in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next item is on the agenda is notice of intent for DEP file number 0061980 and Boston file number 2024-004 from Bowler Engineering on behalf of BCP CG 27 Property LLC for the proposed renovation of the entrance lobby and facade and the installation of an exterior signage container located at 27 Dry Dock, South Boston, Mass. The resource area is land subject to coastal storm flowage. Who's here on behalf of the applicant?
Hi, I'm Emily Anderson here from Bowler Engineering. Here with me as well as Eric Potkin from Beacon Capital Partners from the ownership side.
Great, thank you. Floor is yours.
Thanks. Alina, if you could go to our slides. As mentioned, I'm Emily Anderson here from Bowler. I'm here with Eric from Beacon Capital Partners. The project is located at 27 Dry Dock Avenue and consists of a minor renovation of the ground level lobby and facade and relocation of existing bike racks for the installation of an exterior signage container. Next slide, please. Just some maps to give you some context. Kind of a little red dot on the left-hand map showing the location of the site. And then on the right-hand side, I have the parcel outlined in red on Dry Dock Ave. The project itself is just a small portion of the existing parcel. Next slide, please. More zoomed in view on the north side of the existing building along Dry Dock Avenue. The proponent is proposing to do a renovation of the lobby and facade. And then there's a small amount of site work taking place, primarily with the installation of that sign that I mentioned, also some new bollard lighting and associated electrical conduit. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the project is located in land subject to coastal storm flowage. So got the map here for you. Next slide. To give you an idea of the existing conditions on the site, it's primarily impervious area today with pockets of landscaping in the parking lots. The photo on the left is kind of the front plaza area to the 27 Dry Dock address. And it's kind of hard to see with the snow on the ground, but there is a bike rack kind of in the foreground along the right-hand side there, shown as well in the right-hand picture. And that is the bike rack that would be relocated for a signage container. And then next slide. I've got the site plan on the left and then kind of an illustration of the signage container on the right, which is consistent with other signage along Dry Dock Avenue, particularly at 23 and 25 Dry Dock Avenue. So it's a continuation of what has been installed at those addresses. The site impacts are limited to about 320 square feet of land subject to coastal storm flowage, which consists of the area around the signage container, which will be underlaid with permeable pavers, as well as the trenching area required to install some new electrical conduit for lighting bollards. There's no net increase in impervious area due to the installation of the permeable pavers, and the stormwater standards will be met to the maximum extent practicable. The existing trees on site will remain and be protected during construction, and there's no new landscaping proposed either. It's a pretty limited project, so that's the end of my presentation, but happy to answer any questions from the commission.
Great, thank you, Emily. I don't have any questions on this other than I admire the use of the shipping containers for the signage. I like that quite a bit. Elena, do you have anything on this?
I do not have anything on this.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sullivan?
No questions.
Commissioner Long?
No questions. Thanks.
Commissioner Wilson?
None here either, thanks.
Commissioner Herbst?
And nothing for me.
Okay. Elena, any hands raised?
I'm not seeing any hands and nothing in the inbox either.
Great, thank you. So with that, I would entertain a motion to issue the order of conditions and close the hearing.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Long?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Next item on the agenda is notice of intent for DEP file number 0061983 and Boston file number 2024-007 from Weston and Sampson Engineers on behalf of Barkin Management Company, Inc., AMO, for the proposed installation of permanent deployable dry flood proofing systems for flood resiliency located at 65 and 85 East India Row, downtown. The resource areas are land subject to coastal storm flowage. Have waterfront here, so I'm assuming waterfront area, rocky intertidal, and 100-foot buffer to bank. So 65 and 85 India Road are also known as Harbor Towers, and our firm represents Harbor Towers, so I'm going to be recusing myself, so I'd entertain a motion to appoint Commissioner Herbst chair for this particular hearing.
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So who is here for the applicant?
Yes, good evening. My name is JP Parnas, project manager from Weston and Sampson. I have with me Alex Gaspar, our environmental engineer, and Norman Meisner is one of the residents and also a board member of the Harbor Towers Condominium Association.
Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's time. This is a somewhat limited project. It is a resiliency floodproofing project for both Harbor Towers, although only Harbor Tower 1, which is the one closest to the harbor, is within the 100-foot buffer zone within the jurisdiction. If we could go through the slides, they're sort of all the same. Maybe slide number 4 is probably the most explanatory. Many of you might be familiar with the site. It's along the Harbor Walk, mostly a existing impervious paver and asphalt area, mostly pedestrian pavers within that jurisdiction. The proposed work basically is in 3 different areas. Number 1 is on the Harbor Walk. That's on the upper right-hand side. There is the existing emergency generator exhaust that is currently exiting in the Harbor Walk. It's about an 8-foot pole exhaust pipe that sticks up in the Harbor Walk existing. Our proposal is to, number 1, we're going to perform a single geotechnical exploratory boring adjacent to that. And then the proposed work there is to encase the existing generator exhaust and install a concrete bench essentially as a barrier to protect that exhaust. That exhaust goes down under the pavers, under the sidewalk, and into the basement of the existing building, and therefore is quite vulnerable to flooding, both just from the water, but also from debris hitting it. So we want to be able to enforce that. The second area that we're disturbing is the south and west sides of Tower 1, shown in those gray bars, sort of in an L shape, and including a little bit of the walkway. So those areas, we're going to be removing the existing pavers for a certain width, doing some excavation work there along the perimeter of the building, so we can put some waterproofing on the existing foundation, and then regrading that back up to the finished floor elevation of the building. Included in that, because we're disturbing some of that area and also wanting to change the accessibility, we're relocating an existing wheelchair ramp that's shown on the left there to closer to the main entrance of the Tower 1. So that's also shown in that plan. The third area of intervention is sort of on the upper left, that dark gray bar, horizontal. That indicates an existing fire department connection that is currently embedded in a small retaining wall there and is very close to grade. The intent there is to re-pipe that to a new freestanding fire department connection that's 4 feet high, so it's above above the flood zone, so that a fire can still access that if there's a flood. We've been working with the contractor. We haven't submitted yet a logistics plan, but they have one as a draft. So we are looking at, areas to store materials, store vehicles. Because this is a larger project with both buildings, we have the entire property to use if we need to store materials and vehicles out of the outside of the buffer zone, except obviously when they're working in those particular areas. Trying to think, Alex, is there anything I'm missing?
I believe that is it. I do want to just clarify that we are not working within the Rocky intertidal area. We are within, the 25 feet, but we are not working within that resource area. Also, I believe on the agenda there was no DEP number listed, but DEP has issued a file number, and they did not have any technical comments on it.
Okay, thank you. Elena, I think you may have some comments on this one.
Yeah, so for this, just want to note that we had conducted a pre-hearing site visit on the 15th. And we would just recommend that if the commission chooses to, that they discuss the operations and maintenance of the dry flood proofing equipment to discuss any planning for maintenance or testing that might be required for it. And perhaps also just clarifying further the type of flood barriers that are being proposed here.
Is that something I need to answer, or are you? And I think you're still muted.
Well, then you didn't hear anything I said.
I didn't.
We'll hold off for a minute. I'm just going to let the public know that how they can participate if they want to. So to provide public comment, please raise your hand or type in the chat in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute yourself and send your questions to staff via email at cc@boston.gov or via Twitter by tagging the Twitter handle at Boston Enviro and using the hashtag #ConComHearing. So yes, I'm sorry, I'll give you a second to respond before I go to the commissioners. Mr. Parnes.
Oh, sure. So question about the maintenance of the flood proofing. So there are approximately 3, and I say approximately because there's some hybrid, 3 different types of flood proofing that we're providing for these buildings. One is a permanent glass, partial height glass, about 4.5 feet tall. If you're familiar with the building, it's a series of colonnades, and the glass is going to go in between those columns. The second type is a deployable, it's called the deployable flood log is the product name. So it's basically 2 frames that receive these 1 foot high planks by the width of each bay, and they are manually deployed. So basically 2 people need to pick them up and put them in place so they can be put in 1 foot increments. And they have rubber gaskets and seals between each plank. And I'm not sure of the significance of that question, but they are maintainable. The rubber seals are replaced as needed. Depends on how they're stored and how long they last. I don't know exactly, probably every few years. They will certainly get inspected and replaced if needed. The planks themselves are pretty indestructible aluminum plank.
Okay.
And then, yeah, there's a third type that there's a permanent concrete wall, again, partial height, put in between the 2 columns. And then on the north and east sides, there are full height glazing that's proposed.
Okay, thank you. I think in a recent previous filing, we added a special condition just asking the applicant to provide us with their sort of operation standards, when is it going to be put in place, what need that kind of, when would you, what's your standard for when you're going to use them? And obviously the things that are permanent, there's not much to say about, but where you're.
Yes, there is in the works an operations, a flood operations plan. I believe they currently have one, but obviously this is being updated once these new standards put in. So that can be shared with the committee for sure.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yep.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan, anything?
Yeah, you mentioned a glass barrier 4 foot high. How wide are these and what kind of reinforcement are they?
They are the width of each bay, which is about 9'4". So they span in between the columns. If you're familiar with the building, there's a series of colonnades. Yeah. So they span in between columns where there's a permanent piece of glass. And yes, there are steel posts that are behind the framing for this glass in order to take the water loading. This is being designed to theoretical years 2070 flooding. So it's assuming 4 foot of water up there. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, what kind of reinforcement would occur. Right. And then the stack that you're protecting, I understand what you're saying about what you're doing. How big is this structure that protects the stack? You said a concrete bench.
Yeah, so we're proposing it's sort of part of the foundation, but we thought, well, let's make it into a bench, so we're going to put it there anyway. So it's about I think 12 feet long. We had I believe we included a sketch at some point. It's basically it's a concrete base, I could probably call it.
Right.
So it's
right
at the base of the existing.
And it would be 18 inches high, so people can sit on it, or?
Correct. Yes, it's bench height. Correct.
Bench height.
Yes.
All right, and it doesn't block any part of the harbor walk.
It does not. Nope.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Long.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I could be wrong, but this may have been a long time coming. So good to see, flood protection over here at these buildings. I think, it would be great to get kind of the operations plan when we get to that point. And then I think the maintenance of the flood proofing equipment might be covered in our condition 61. But I'll let, folks hash that out after the fact. And then for the, what we had talked about for, similar, maintenance procedures, I think, sometimes manufacturers might provide, maintenance instructions. So I think we've accepted those in the past, if I'm not incorrect about that. So they may have ready-made maintenance instructions. I'm not sure. As part of that submittal of the operations plan, would it be possible to get a detailed drawing of the temporary and permanent flood barriers? Because that was something that I didn't see in the NOI materials.
Sure.
Cool. All right. And I saw another thing in that NOI was a variance request for the waterfront area. I wasn't sure where staff had landed on that with the applicant. What? Elena or JP.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
There was in the NOI materials, there was a variance request to allow a variance within the waterfront area. So I wasn't sure what that was specific to, but I don't know if that was something that staff had talked to the applicant about.
We haven't had a chance to discuss that yet, but that's a good flag. I think would that be something that we would want to connect with but like as a prior to construction item, or would that be something that needs to happen sooner?
Well, I'll just say I was going to ask about that because I see that you have some small amount of permanent encroachment in the waterfront area, but I couldn't figure out what it was, and perhaps that's what you were asking for permission to do, but I think it would be helpful to understand.
Alex, do you want to address that? I'm assuming it's the bench around the generator.
Yes, I believe, or no, it is the that northern. It's just a little piece on like the northern edge. The dark gray or the lighter gray, I think, represents permanent impact. It's just on that northern. You can see the 25-foot waterfront area line. It's just a small piece within that 25-foot waterfront area. I don't know if we can zoom these in at all, but
I see what you're talking about. That's yeah, just good to clarify that. But I think
Yeah,
I don't really have any concerns
50,
about
it's 52 square feet of permanent impact, than the 25 foot.
And what is the impact? What,
I'm not positive what that is from.
This is around the generator exhaust, is that correct? Oh, no,
This
I'm sorry,
is
that's the,
the-
that's the extension of the fire department connection that I mentioned before.
Gotcha.
Right on the upper left there?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that's where we have to excavate, and we don't actually have to excavate all the way back to the building. We're excavating only a small portion in order to relocate those pipes and install the new fire department connections away from that small retaining wall.
Yeah, and the Commissioner Herbst, I don't know if you have anything on that.
I guess I'm maybe you've got it, Commissioner Long, but I'm still trying to understand what's the impact of the impact? Is it taking up some of the waterfront area, or what makes it permanent? Do we lose access to it?
Well, I don't certainly an accessible point right now. I believe it's landscaped area, actually. A small tree or something might be there, but basically the existing fire department connections are, those hose connections that you can unscrew. They're up against a retaining wall that's sort of on the north side of that dark gray bar that we're looking on the upper left. So we're going to relocate those, and they're going to be freestanding fire department connections. So they're basically pipes that stick up with connections on them about 4 feet. So they do take up some additional space, but not more than, say, 12 inches around each one of them.
In the waterfront area?
Yes.
Okay. Thoughts on that from any of the commissioners?
You mentioned there might be landscaping there, in that little sliver of waterfront area, but it's not on the existing conditions plan. Did I understand that right, JP?
Yeah, it's actually adjacent to it. There's some very small planters with trees in it adjacent to that area.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
Yeah, not right where we're working.
And they're planters, not like a tree pit or anything.
No.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, any other commissioners have thoughts on that? Or if not, that's the end of my questioning.
Okay. Well, it sounded like, I don't know if people want to consider closing the hearing and issuing an order of conditions. It sounds like we would want a special condition that requires the applicant to provide us with the operations plan, detailed drawings of the temporary and permanent walls, and any maintenance instructions that are available.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Long?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So that passes 4-0. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you all for
time.
your time.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Herbst. Okay, there have been a number of continuances. Continued have been notice of intent for DEP file number 0061704 and Boston file number 2020-007. Notice of intent for DEP file number 0061772 and Boston file number 2021-010. And finally, DEP file number 0061961 and Boston file number 2023-051. We'll now begin our regular meeting. Elena, the Boston Harbor Islands mooring field program is off, right?
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, we weren't able to schedule that site visit in time, so we'd recommend continuing that.
Great. Okay. Next item is request for a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 0061664 for landscaping and fence installation located at 16 Weld Street in Roslindale. Resource area is 100-foot buffer to bordering vegetated wetlands. What do you have on this, Eleanor?
Yes, so we were able to conduct a site visit earlier this week. There are photos in the drive for the commission's review. Based on our assessment, it seemed that everything was done according to what was permitted and all of the work seemed to be cleared up. So we would recommend issuing a COC for this.
Great, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 0061664.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst.
Aye.
And I vote aye, that carries 5-0. Okay, next item on the agenda are administrative updates. Do you have anything, Elena?
We're all set on that. Nothing this time around.
Okay, great. Continued regarding orders of conditions are the orders of conditions for notice of intent for DEP file number 0061958, Boston file number 2023-048. Also notice of intent for DEP file number 0061928, Boston file number 2023-081. Last item on the agenda is the acceptance of meeting minutes from February 7th, 2024. I looked them over. I made a few minor changes. Do any of the commissioners have any questions on the minutes?
Nope.
Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes from February 7th, 2024.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Great. Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Long,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Herbst,
Aye.
and I vote aye. That carries 5-0. Okay, the motion we've all been waiting for, a motion to adjourn by acclamation. Any objection?
Oh, boy.
We are
No.
now adjourned. See you in a few weeks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.
Happy
Hey,
night.
guys.